Goodies. Every year I start a bunch of spring seedlings for cool weather crops, and every year I struggle to find a place to put them in the garden. These seedlings I have right here are a mix of different brassicas, as in like broccoli types, different kale types, as well as some calendula, some catnip, some marshmallow plant. I think this is mullein. I did plant mullein seeds, which I have still inside the house, but this guy didn't have a tag. I think it's mullein. Pretty darn certain. And although I build new garden beds and increase the size of my garden every year, I always manage to find more space for summer plants, and I end up seeding more summer plants, which means I can't fill those spaces with spring crops because I have to hold on to that space for tomatoes, peppers, and the like. And I keep telling myself I have to keep a dedicated garden bed each winter so that I can plant out like spring broccoli or things like that. And I don't have to worry about keeping that space for tomatoes or peppers or eggplant or corn or anything like that. But I always end up not doing that. And I just get so excited about the summer garden that I end up starting way too many seeds and just planning to have more summer plants. But I'm going to plant everything that I have in here if it looks good enough to plant. And if it gets in the way of my summer plants come, you know, transplant time out into the garden, I'll just pull them up. That's fine. That's okay. In the very least, they are going to be putting roots in the soil, adding nutrients, and keeping the soil health alive just by living in the beds. So it's good either way, even if I don't get any food out of it. With the herbs that I have, like this calendula, this catnip, and this marshmallow, I'm actually going to find dedicated places for them because they are perennial, except for this calendula. But the marshmallow and the catnip are perennial plants, so these herbs will come back year after year. So I need to find a good place in the garden where they won't be in the way, kind of like this rosemary is at the corner of the bed. And in the previous 2 years, I had catnip growing in the in-ground garden, but because of a big Bermuda grass infestation that caught up to me last year, I had to tarp the entire in-ground garden and it killed the catnip, unfortunately. So for the future, because likely I will have to do this whole Bermuda grass eradication thing again, I won't be growing any perennial herbs that I really want in the in-ground garden because they're just going to die when I have to, you know, completely till the area or tarp the area. I think I'm going to plant some calendula in this bed and check up on the onions we planted the other day together. There's some. Some of them are doing good, but there are some spots where I think they just died. I don't see any here. It did get cold the night right after, so we've got some. Here's a volunteer something. Maybe a melon or sunflower. I've had volunteers popping up for the last week all over the place, and it gets me so excited, but also so sad at the same time because most of them are warm weather crops and will not be surviving the freezes if they get much bigger. There are some sunflowers over here that are coming up in the garlic bed. And right now they've been like mostly protected because of the garlic and the mulch. But once they start to grow up and get a little bit taller, I mean, we have several weeks before our last frost. I'm not sure these guys are going to survive. But we'll see. That'll be really cool if they do. They'll be much hardier and more vibrant, healthy plants if they do survive. Volunteers are always much better than seeds you start yourself because they just grew up in tough conditions. So I've got an idea, and I don't know if it's incredibly stupid or incredibly brilliant. But catnip is a member of the mint family, anyone who's ever planted mint. It's a bully. It can take over a garden bed very quickly, very easily. It's kind of like Bermuda grass. It sends out, is it rhizomes? Underneath the ground, stolons are above ground. But it takes over a garden bed. Catnip will do the same thing. Maybe not to quite the extent that mint does, I'm not sure. But in the corner of these beds, especially in the full sun beds that don't have the shade cloth, I have a Bermuda grass problem. So I was thinking, what if I plant catnip in the corner of this bed? The Bermuda grass is invasive, like invasive into the bed. The catnip will want to take over the bed. What if I choke out Bermuda grass with catnip? Do you think it will work, or do you think I'm going to completely ruin my garden bed with catnip? I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I have to try it now that I've thought of it. We'll see. I would much rather have catnip taking over my bed than Bermuda grass any day, so I can't even be mad if it does, honestly. I think I like that idea. So I'm gonna plant some catnip in this bed and both of these beds. The Bermuda grass is pretty bad. I might do some in one of these flower beds too. The only issue with planting in those flower beds is I actually do want to harvest catnip this year because I don't currently have any plants growing. And the soil is really bad in those beds. So I don't want to plant it and then have it die. Well, not all of the seedlings made it. It's a couple days later than the shooting of the previous clips. And we got a cold snap. Not only was it cold, just really at night, but there's been some really, really bad wind. We've had red flag warnings, which are high wind, high fire risk, for several days. Really like the whole of last week. So with the wind and the cold, I would say half of the seedlings didn't make it. A lot of the brassicas did in these two front beds, which is interesting. Several seedlings that were in my older established beds did not make it, and I don't know if it was a problem of the particular seedling or if it's some sort of microclimate difference between these garden beds. I also entertain the possibility that because these beds are new and the soil is crappy and it's just full of undecomposed organic matter, perhaps these beds are composting, maybe a little bit. Not a whole bunch, but maybe just in the sense that these beds are a teensy bit warmer. The soil is a bit warmer than my other beds, which are established soil. I don't know. Could be anything. I'm not going to take the time to figure it out, but I do still have a couple surviving seedlings, which is great. And I've also got some seeds coming up. In this same bed, this guy, I don't know what it is. The leaves kind of look like a sunflower melon type plant. Not sure. I know I planted a ton of seeds in these two beds. This is one of the endless problems with throwing seeds willy-nilly in the ground every year. It's a good problem to have though. And although it can be frustrating to not know what you're getting, it's exciting at the same time because you don't know what you're getting. It's a surprise! This bed fared much better, except this guy over here got some frost damage. Again, I do not know which type of plant this was. Likely a brassica. And then I have a little bit of pest damage. Oh, hello. This is a cabbage worm from the white cabbage moth. That is where all of this damage came from. One single worm. Crazy, huh? These guys, if left unchecked, can be super damaging on the magnitude of the type of damage that a tomato hornworm can cause. So these moths, they're the white moths with the black dots on them. They're everywhere, here, everywhere, I believe. And I don't do anything to control them. I might this fall, just because they were a big problem for me last fall. But they lay so many tiny eggs, and these cabbage worms are the exact color of the brassica leaf, and they just blend in so well, and they grow very fast. They'll be super, super tiny. You can't see them, microscopic one day. And the next day, they're as big as this guy, and the next day, he'll be 3 times as big, eating a million times as much. And these are just a big old problem here in the spring and fall garden. But not much else I planted survived. I know I had a couple seedlings in here. Did not survive. Oh, well, technically this was a calendula, and it's not totally dead yet. If you see that, I won't pull this guy off. But this one's not alive. I am very happy that the catnip lived, though. Upon further reflection, after like half my seedlings died, and I kind of knew that that was gonna happen, I kicked myself for transplanting out catnip when it's an herb I really need that I don't have any left of in my garden, and I just risked these seedlings to just to get them out here. That was silly, but they lived. This 2 of them did. The one in the other bed did not. My onions are coming along swimmingly, so are these 2 chamomiles. I believe this one overwintered. I think both of them did, actually. And this one's already sending up shoots to flower, which is going to be great that I will have early chamomile coming on. I have 1 plant over there and a few inside that I still need to transplant out. My shallots are doing good. They were the first to come up from the ground after I planted the potato onions and the shallots at the same time. Potato onions and shallots are both members of the allium family, the onion family, and they are perennial plants, which means that these bulbs that I planted will multiply and create more, and then this fall, I can keep some shallots, put some more in the ground to proliferate more for next spring, etc., etc. So this is the first time I've had perennial onion varieties. I'm very, very excited about this because onions are one of my favorite vegetables to eat. I have them in everything. So to have a perennial, year-round source of oniony goodness is very, very exciting. I just saw these guys. Look at these aphids just crawling along. They're just going along the garden bed highway, I guess, to the next source of food. They don't like onion plants, but they do love broccoli plants, and there are a ton of aphids on here. Ooh. Yeah, this plant's covered. I'm gonna have to come in here with a hose and spray this guy. Not because I care about a harvest of broccoli, but I do care about this guy spreading his seeds to other broccoli plants that I'm hoping to get seed from this year. And I know I do preach survival of the fittest in regards to seed saving and proliferating hardy seeds and seed crops in my garden. But this plant did exceptionally well over the winter, and I really, really, really want its genetics. I'm not going to spray anything regarding pesticides because I still need the butterflies to come here and pollinate these flowers. But I will take a water hose and just try and spray that plant off as often as possible to keep the aphid load down. And I'm really hoping this particular broccoli plant survives, because this one died for some reason. I do not know why. I checked the base here and there's, as far as I can feel, no damage, no cutoff here at the base of the plant that would make this whole thing just wilt. And the aphid load isn't, I mean, it's not great. Hold on, let's see if I can find some. Yeah, it's not the worst I've seen. I've seen way worse on a healthier plant before. So I'm not quite sure what the issue is here. But I don't want this plant to also go by way of the dodo. And unfortunately, it looks like that one over there is starting to peter out as well. So I'm hopeful for all these good genetics that survived through the winter, but they seem to be immediately dying upon springtime, which is not ideal. I'm still gonna leave all these plants in just in case. There's still pollinators floating around here every day. So if I get any seeds from any of these broccoli plants I still have in the ground, I'm saving them 100%. I will leave these plants in for any possible seed that I can get this year. I've worked way too hard to not get a single seed from any of these broccoli plants. Thankfully, this one's starting to flower. But these two guys, which look healthy, sending out new sprouts, have not flowered yet. So I've got a bunch of pollen and the other plants going to waste because these guys aren't flowering. This whole intentional seed saving process that I've conducted over the fall and winter has actually been pretty stressful. You know, you start off the season growing all these plants, you're like, I'm gonna have so much food, and then you make the decision to find the best, most tasty looking, most productive plants, and you don't eat them. You just don't eat them. You don't touch them. And you pray that that beautiful food that you refuse to eat lives long enough for it to produce seed in several months and give you genetics for the next year. And then you watch them die. And this plant dying might be a blessing. It might very well be that it just can't handle a moderate aphid load. And if that's the case, I don't want these genetics in my seed bank anyways. I don't want a plant that's going to, you know, survive all winter and then die out right at the beginning of spring when the pests start coming out. So this could be a blessing in disguise, who knows? As long as I get something viable out of this year's broccoli, I will be happy. Alright guys, I'm gonna head inside. I think I'm done pitter-pattering for the day. But I know this video is just going to be kind of a vlog, an amalgamation of random stuff that I'm doing in the garden this week. The wind has been so bad. So it's nice to come out here when I can and get a little bit of work done, maybe film, and then head back inside and get out of this weather. But I will catch you guys on the next one.